the morning meeting, the way to start your day like the pros do, based on the meetings held by the television broadcast and cable news networks to talk about what's coming up today with some spicy analysis. Today featuring guest celebrity Tim Hogan. And you know him from running into him at the Whole Foods, Sean Spicer. Gentlemen, welcome. I'll run through the day book, then we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Not a ton on the schedule that we know about, which I'll get to in a second. The big thing is there are, by my count, five Pennsylvania polls today, and so we're going to talk about that. Kamala Harris is in Washington today with meetings. She leaves for Detroit at 3:45 Eastern, and then in Detroit, or technically Farmington Hills, she and a gal named Oprah Winfrey are doing a streaming live event. I believe at least some of the focus is on reproductive rights, and that's her event of the day. She comes back to Andrews an hour before midnight, right after 11 o'clock. Donald Trump has one and perhaps two events in D.C. connected to Israel. He's doing a 6 o'clock event on fighting anti-Semitism with Dr. Miriam Adelson. And then again, I think he may be giving a speech to a pro-Israel group after that. But I'm not sure about that. And I don't know what the heck Tim Walz, J.D. Vance, or Doug Emhoff is doing. Joe Biden is taking a victory lap on the economy to the Washington Economic Club. Seems like for those in Harris world who think Joe Biden should be neither heard nor seen, seems like an interesting choice to go out and talk about the success of Bidenomics. But that's what he is doing. So, as I said, 5 polls that I count in this news cycle. The first one came yesterday from Quinnipiac, and then in quick succession, we had at midnight, we had the release. I don't know why they release a poll at midnight Eastern time. We had Marist. Then at 5 a.m., we had the New York Times. Somewhere in there, we had Franklin and Marshall, and then shortly after that, the Washington Post. So let's look at 2 of them. The New York Times did their poll. That's 103, guys. They did their poll, both. They did a Pennsylvania poll and a national poll. And I'll flip all the cards and tell you that in talking to both Republicans and Democrats who know about polling, they got problems with all these polls. So there are people out there who are pro-Harris who will look at these polls where Harris is either even or ahead. And that's been the trend in Pennsylvania polls lately, even or ahead. So this poll has Harris tied nationally and ahead in Pennsylvania. No such thing on current planet Earth to have that kind of polling result. And Nate Cohen in his sidebar digs into that. But there you see her. That's still within the margin of error, because the way margin of error works, it's plus or minus times 2, because it's plus or minus on both sides. But nonetheless, that's a hefty lead, 4 points for Harris. The Washington Post poll, switch to please 104, has them tied in Pennsylvania. I can't tell you how much negativity I heard from both Democrats and Republicans about the Quinnipiac poll and about the Times poll. People are digging into the crosstabs. Remember, even a great pollster, 1 in 20 polls or so are going to be bad just because of the nature of sampling. We all know about the challenges in the polling industry in general. We all know that media polls and academic polls are done on the cheap, unlike campaign polls. Now, let's look at a series of questions from this is from the Franklin and Marshall poll. I'm trying to remember where it's put up. 102, please. Is this from Franklin and Marshall? I think it is, right? The Franklin and Marshall poll, probably too small for a lot of you to read. But my point is, you might say, well, the horse race may be off, but let's go ahead and look at the description of the candidates. And as you can see here, there's a bunch of things they tested. Harris versus Trump in August, tested in September, Pennsylvania voters. You can just see from the bar graphs, not a lot changed. You can take that down. Here's my point, guys, and this is the first topic. Garbage in, garbage out. If there's something wrong with the overall sample, looking at traits isn't going to matter much. If it's oversampling Democrats or it's skewed Democratic, it doesn't matter if how many people in the poll think Harris is better in the economy,
yeah,
whatever.
I thought I would just give you an update.
Hold on. We got somebody to mute there, folks.
My point of view,
hold on. We'll find him. Find who that is. Let's go ahead and mute him. We'll talk over it for now, but I'm sure we'll find him. If you want to get in the conversation, as some of you have already, please raise your hand. As always, we'd like to get in folks who haven't had a chance to talk. Tim, what would you advise our audience regarding 5 Pennsylvania polls ranging from Harris with a big lead to tied? Should they care? Should they try to dig into them and figure it out? or should they listen to me and say the campaigns aren't taking these seriously? Pennsylvania's basically tied, but it's Harris's toughest of the blue wall states. Tim.
Yeah, no, I agree with that assessment. I think it's a big question mark that sort of comes out in the wash with the polls that you just ran through. And that is how that state, I think, is going to remain probably now until election day. It's also not just necessarily Pennsylvania, it's Michigan and Wisconsin too, in some of the polls that we've seen come out over the last few days, where Wisconsin looked like it was the best state, and maybe that was confirmed by the Seltzer poll because the demographics in Iowa are similar to the demographics in Wisconsin, but then that looked like that's getting closer. I mean, what we're talking about right now is riding the polar coaster, and it's fun sometimes, but it's also totally disorienting, and that's the moment that we're in right now.
All right, so stay off the stroller coaster is the headline from Tim Hogan for me. Sean Spicer, would you dabble in maybe use 5 tickets to go on the
yeah, so I just say this. When you look at the last, 8 polls, starting at the beginning of September, tie, Harris up 3, Harris up 4, Harris up 5, tie, Trump up 2, tie, Trump up 1. Number one, I think you need to look at any poll any public poll in the context of a trend. Where are things generally moving? My takeaway from Pennsylvania is it's a dead heat. I think that's the bottom line, because to your point, margin of error and screen can account for something in one poll. But when you look at all these polls, 8 of them, there is something, no one's going outside the margin of error. Everybody's saying it's either a tie or one's up a point or 2. I think Pennsylvania is a dead heat. And that's the takeaway, is that this pretty much confirmed that.
Again, I agree with that. I agree with what Tim said. The other thing you got to think about, though,
Tim or me.
Both of you. I agree with both of you. You guys agree. The other thing you got to think about, or you didn't disagree, is both campaigns will say Pennsylvania is the toughest state for Harris amongst Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. There's a time, even after Biden was no longer the nominee, where some Democrats with access to robust private data said Trump should be favored in Pennsylvania. Not by a lot, but Trump should be favored. And the Trump campaign believes that too, by the way. They've consistently said Trump is the favorite ahead in Pennsylvania, not by a lot. And then lastly, you got to think about, if you're pro-Harris, you got to think about paths that don't involve Pennsylvania. You just do. And that means probably winning Georgia and North Carolina. Probably. That's the most likely path. And that's tough for people, particularly the Republicans, who say Georgia's coming back to Trump. And then you talk about the 2 Western states. There are Republicans who are very bullish on those states. The Silver State, I always call it the Silver State because I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, and I never have. The Silver State is hard to poll. It always has been, and because lots of people move in and out. But if you're someone who believes Mar-a-Lago's claim that Georgia and Arizona are back to Trump, then if you're Harris, you got to win North Carolina. You got to win Pennsylvania. You just have to. So,
Mark, can I make one more point on Pennsylvania that's important? So in 2016, just to give people context, Trump won Pennsylvania by 44,292 votes. Jill Stein in that race got 49,941 votes in there. Okay, so she pulled basically 50,000 votes away from, not all of them would go to the Dems, but a good chunk. And Trump only won by about 45,000 votes. In 2020, Biden won Pennsylvania by 80,555 votes. The Green Party that time, she wasn't on the ballot, only got 1,000 votes. Okay. Yep. Stein is back on the ballot this time. And I think that that's important when you look at how these third parties are going to factor in and why people are bullish on a state. That kind of context matters.
Right.
And so it's not just the polling, the head-to-head, but, in a state where now over 2 cycles, we've seen an under 100,000 vote victory. To look at what Jill Stein in particular is going to get is crucial.
Right. It's crucial, but I'll tell you 3 things about Jill Stein, which make it even less like 16 and more like 20, where those other candidates weren't a factor. Number one, the Democrats have already begun quietly, and will make it much more robust, an effort to go after Jill Stein directly, but also to tell people a vote for Stein is a vote for Trump. And they didn't do that in 16. They didn't do it in 2000 either. They've learned their lesson. So the same DNC team that went hard after RFK, first when he was running as a Democrat, then when he was running independent, that very skilled team, it's like an all-star team of Democratic operatives. They've got everybody but Tim Hogan of any quality in the party working on that team. That team is going to go hard after that. Number two, there is more awareness now than there's ever been that if you vote for Jill Stein, you could be helping Trump. And I think that'll keep her vote down. And the third thing that is keeping her vote down just is people, they just don't have as much buoyancy. You just see it in the polls. They have barely any vote share. And normally the independents and the third parties have high vote share, and it comes down as we get closer to election day organically. It's already quite low. Now, I want to show you one polling result that does matter. Absolutely the case. No matter what you think about anything, this poll result matters. This would be 101, please. There's a tweet from one of X's leading purveyors of content on the platform, which is a tweet I sent out earlier today. So this is from the New York Times poll. Again, maybe a little hard for some of you to read, but hopefully not. They asked about the favorability, unfavorability of political strategist Taylor Swift. All right. Favorability of Democrats, 70%. Favorability of independents, 41%. Tim, what could possibly account for the delta between Democrats and independents on favorability of Taylor Swift? Why wouldn't independents say All Too Well is a rock classic any less than Democrats would? I don't get it.
Well, look, I mean, anytime you're talking about independents, you're also talking about people who are leaners, right? And in different times, that means you have a more Republican-leaning sample, a more Democratic-leaning sample. So it's not like, independents are the like pure, non-ideological in any way type of voter. And the reality is, Republicans for a while, I think since Swift endorsed in the previous election and even before that, they recognize her power, and there has been a concerted effort in conservative media to undercut her, whether that is, the Fox News narrative that she is a part of a psyop, to go after her credibility. So there has been a long, quiet campaign to reach out to voters and to try to undercut her influence, because I think they knew the direction that this was going. She can still post it on Instagram and direct hundreds of thousands of people to go register to vote. So it's still a huge deal, but I think that's the explanation.
All right. None of that speaks to All Too Well, but I take your points. Sean, she hasn't yet said she's going to do anything beyond, use social media and her concert appearances and other appearances to direct people. No events with Team Harris. But what do you make of her poor unfave with independents?
I mean, look, here's what I would tell you. I'd be interested. I would be surprised if she did. I think there's a business piece to this, which is, do you really want to piss off, a third to 50% of your fans? And I think
apparently she's already done it.
No, she has. And the question is, how much further do you want to push this? And I think that there's an element to which you can say, I did my part, but there's a line in which I want to go up to. I think that when you engage in politics, we've seen this, particularly anyone on the right, you get canceled, you get pushed out. This is the reality of, at least someone on this is now highlighting that people on the left kind of face some kind of consequence, but the folks on the right have been dealing with this for decades.
Right. All right. Let's go to the wrap.
Someone put in the chat that, and I knew this, but she's coming back to the U.S. Her concert tour is going to be here, but most of the shows are going to be in Florida. So maybe we'll convince her to go somewhere else for a concert.
Yeah.
That's one of those 7 states.
I'm seeing her in Canada after the election, by the way. I recuse myself from all discussions of Taylor Swift because, all right, back by popular demand, by which I mean I like it. It's the morning meeting rapid round where Sean and Tim give their answers and then I say whether they were right or wrong, because that's the power that I have here. All right, guys, here's the first question on the morning meeting rapid round. Best under-noticed thing that Kamala Harris and her campaign are doing. What's the best under-noticed thing they're doing? Tim?
Yeah, I haven't seen updated numbers on this, but it is staffing their GOTV infrastructure. They, in August, put out a memo that said they had, 1,600 people in the States. I am sure it is well beyond that now, 260 offices, and they're doing a great job there.
Sean?
I think the way that she has handled race and gender, contrasting that to Hillary in 2016, has been very good.
Both correct. Both correct. Where's our sound effect? There you go. Both correct. Excellent. All right. Best under-noticed thing that Donald Trump is doing. Sean.
I think the way that they're going after Michigan, you've seen Harris respond to that key Arab Muslim population in Michigan. It's not flying very high, but obviously a big battleground state and a lot of electoral votes.
Correct. Tim.
I think, Mark, you mentioned this on the two-way last night. I think their team has been smart to, and maybe this is, just a turn in the last 24 hours, but they seem to be putting him in more settings where he's interacting directly with people, taking that footage and trying to, I don't remember if it's Sean or you who hates the word humanize, but humanize him more. And I think they've done that well over the last at least 24 hours.
4 for 4. Tim is also correct. If you didn't watch last night's episode, and Tim apparently was lurking, Tim, I don't know, you should have come on. We played a bunch of clips
after the live. I watched it after it was live.
Okay, we played a bunch of clips of stuff Trump did yesterday that his team put out of him doing all sorts of serving hamburgers, visiting with the sick kid, going on Gutfeld, and so the humanization is under noticed. Except if you watched two-way last night. All right, Sean or Tim, let's do Sean. Fatal error that Kamala Harris is making.
Okay, fatal error is very loaded, but I will say if we're talking about doing more interviews and whether it's local or national, I think they are gonna do it. I think they are poised to do it. I think she should do more interviews. I think it's important.
Yeah. All right. Just to be clear, fatal's like in italics. It's not actually fatal, but just something she's doing that's existentially problematic. Sean.
I'd be more specific and say that I don't think that she's giving enough voters the details that they want on key issues.
Amazing. Both correct again. 6 for 6. Sean, fatal error Trump is making.
Not focusing on the economy enough.
Tim?
Yep. Agree.
All right. I got to say yes. That was a gimme. Both correct. All right. Tim, sleeper issue that's working for Kamala Harris.
They've tried to make it a bigger thing in the last couple of days with some comments from JD Vance about the ACA, but I think it's healthcare.
Healthcare, correct. Sean.
I'm stuck on this one, to be honest, so pass. Just give me the...
Sean, we had a perfect streak. You know
what? No, I needed to break it up. Sorry.
All right. The correct answer actually, besides what Tim said, the correct answer, entitlements. Yeah. All right. Sleeper issue that's working for Trump. Tim, go first again.
I think maybe his posture of saying no tax on insert policy might have some appeal, despite it, blowing up a deficit and not having to have a plan for it.
Yeah. Correct. Again, Tim is on a roll. Sean.
I think I'm going to put a question mark here and say this potential issue of exploiting Springfield to drive the issue of immigration may actually turn out to be a positive in the end.
Wrong. The correct answer, we were looking for the Forever Wars. We were looking for the Forever Wars. All right. Unsung hero for Team Harris. Tim.
This is a person?
Yeah.
Can I say my mind just wants to say Oprah because Oprah's today, and then I'm thinking Taylor Swift because we talked about Taylor Swift, but I don't think I should just say celebrities. I think despite the Teamsters vote yesterday, the union deployment that we're going to see for Harris, they are going to be the unsung heroes. There's a good NBC piece about them yesterday, particularly in the Southwest.
Tim, undefeated. Incredible rapid round for Tim. Sean, unsung hero for Team Harris.
I think my jury's out on what Oprah will do, but I think she has the potential to be very helpful because unlike Taylor Swift, she's actually doing events, and that could have the potential of helping because she's definitely has more cross appeal to an older demographic.
Because I'm both feeling generous and I want to keep this at least semi-competitive, I'll say correct, but it really wasn't. All right, last one. Sean, unsung hero for Team Trump.
I don't know that I would have said this a month ago, but the feedback that Tulsi Gabbard is getting on the trail has been unbelievable. I'm going to give Tulsi Gabbard the Unsung Hero Award.
Do 2 corrects for Sean. He nailed that one. 2 corrects. Hit it twice. One more time. Tim.
That was actually going to be my answer, so I agree.
Give Tim 2. Both correct. Amazing. All right. Thanks to Audra Wilkie for producing that segment beyond my wildest expectations. And now let's go to your questions. Thank you for joining. Best name of the day. Hears it all the time. Dodger Pascal. Dodger, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind.
Thanks a lot, fellas. I'm from San Diego here. I'm actually not planning on voting for either of the candidates. But my question was related to my home state of California, where Gavin Newsom just signed into law these deepfake laws. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. And I was wondering if you had any feelings on those, as well as if you think it'll make any impact whatsoever.
Okay.
I'm familiar with them. Hold on. Audrey, you need to mute, please. Tim, do you know about these deepfake laws?
Not a lot. But I will say what's interesting in the AI space right now is like I think where people thought we were going was you're gonna have like really clear, footage of like, Trump speaking, and it's unclear if it's really him or it's not him, and most of it is like cat memes, or like really cartoonish versions of them. So I think AI is still an issue. I'm not familiar with the particular deepfake laws, but like it shows that we don't even know exactly where this technology is going, even as it develops.
Sean.
So I would say, and I don't know if this is exactly what Tim was getting at, but I think it was. I'm actually surprised that it hasn't played a bigger role. Tim, was that what you were like? The way that this was presented earlier in the cycle, I thought we'd see a lot more of this. Look, I don't think it's having an effect yet because I don't think it's a big enough deal right now. We'll see where this thing goes, both in like other states, whether it's California but nationally, it hasn't really resonated as well. I don't know that people care enough because we haven't seen the consequences. It usually takes some issue or some event to make people recognize that it's a problem. So I don't think we're there yet.
Dodger, before you go, two things. Number one, if you were forced to vote between Harris and Trump, you just had to, who would you vote for and why?
Undoubtedly Donald Trump. The only reason why I really don't support him is because of this, when he put out that message where he said that Mike Pence could change the election if he wanted to, and that's why they're trying to change the laws. I don't blame him for J6. I think personal responsibility there. He told people to march peacefully. And I think, during his term, a lot of people point to, him being an obnoxious jerk, which he is. But I just don't think that the impact of his policies was as negative as a lot of naysayers say. And it's like they accuse Trump supporters of cult of personality. I think there's a equal and opposite reaction on the other end. So, yeah, I can't support Kamala at all. I'm a California resident, so I've seen her rise from, the DA all the way to AG to the VP or to senator and then to VP. And I just feel like she's failed upwards her entire career and has changed her position so many times. I could never support her. And I'll just say one last thing. I don't think that hatred of Trump justifies support of Kamala, but I think a lot of people disagree with me there. So,
Dodger, how'd you find two-way?
I found this through the Fifth Column, actually, and I was happy to find it. I enjoy listening to you, Mark. I think you have a lot of insightful commentary. I heard listen to you on Megyn Kelly as well, and I was happy to see you push back against her, which is very rare for her guests. I thought you did so in a very classy way. But yeah, Fifth Column is my favorite podcast.
Yeah, they're great guys. Dodger, I only pushed back because no one told me not to. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Come back regularly. Now that I know I wasn't supposed to, maybe
can I make one quick point on Dodger? It's sort of I can't tell you on a daily basis. I don't know if Tim or you probably get the same thing. I get more text from people. Is this story real? And I will spend about usually 60 seconds, and it's like, aliens abducted Harris and Tim Walz is stuck inside of her. I mean, it's like, it takes 8 seconds. And my point to everyone, regardless of AI and whatever, is before you start sending stuff around, Google for like 4 minutes and just go, okay, is this legit? But on a daily basis, it is amazing. Like some people are dumb enough not to take the time to actually look.
We were put on Earth to keep people from having to Google. That's why the three of us are here. Diana, can you come back on camera, or you want to finish your run and not ask a question? If you can come back on camera, Diana, I'd love to unmute you and have you ask. Maybe not. All right, there you go. All right. Great headphones. You're frozen. Unfortunate, because I really want to get you in. Diana, come. There you go. All right, you're good now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Try talking, Diana.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Tell
Can
us
you
where
hear
you
me?
are. Yep. Tell
Okay.
folks who don't know. Tell folks who don't know who you are, where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Okay, God bless you. So I live in Tennessee, and who I for used to vary by which day of the week it is, and now it's by which hour of the day it is. So
Between Trump and Harris. Between Trump and Harris.
Between Trump and Harris, yes, sir. So I had
who'd you vote for? Who'd you vote for? Who'd you vote for? Sorry, Diana, who'd you vote for in 2016? Clinton or Trump?
Neither one. The guy that was in Utah. I can't think of his name, but I like him.
Evan McMullen, Sean's friend, Evan
Thank
McMullen.
You.
And who'd you vote for in 2020? Biden or Trump?
I voted for Biden.
Biden.
Because I was just tired. I was worn out. So,
all right.
Two quick thank yous. One is a thank you to Sean, because last time he fussed at me for not being engaged enough. And I am now working for my congressman, David Kustoff, and I have signed up with no labels. So thank you, Sean, for nagging. A big thank you to you for the undecided panels, because I don't feel alone, and I love listening to them.
They're your kindred spirits.
They are. And I asked my husband if I could go ahead and move to a state that's going to make a difference, and he just told me no. So there you go. The FYI is I have a daughter and two beautiful grandchildren who live in Israel. They're Israeli Americans. And what has surprised me when I'm talking to my Israeli friends is the positives that they say about Kamala and the negatives that they say about Trump. Remembering, and yes, Sean, before you fuss at me, they are decidedly more pro-Trump, but it is far more balanced in terms of who they think will be good for Israel than I had expected. So that's just an FYI. The question I have is related to an interview that was on MSNBC. I think it was Ari Melber. Am I saying his name right? Interviewing Yuval Harari. Hopefully, I say his name right. And basically, Yuval has a view that information, especially for people who are populist and people who are on the far left, has a power dynamic, and that what you have to ask is not is this true or not, but what is the power behind the statement? And then Ari followed up by asking about the cats and dogs being eaten. And what shocked me, Yuval basically gave an answer that the power behind that is everyone is talking about immigration. And immigration is a Trump issue.
Yeah.
So my question related to that is, do the Democrats understand that power of information to create a narrative that will unite people? And from a Republican standpoint, anything that Sean has to say on that, or you, Mark.
All right,
thank you.
All right, Diane, thank you. I'm going to mute you just because you're on the move there. But let's first, guys, I want you to engage what she asked. But I want to start with another rapid round question. Donald Trump last night said, as had been discussed, that he would go to Springfield. Will he actually go? Tim, yes or no?
I think he will go. Yeah.
Sean?
Yes.
Okay. Tim, pick up on any point Diana made and tell us what you think.
Yeah. I mean, the immigration question, right? That is how the Trump team is spinning it, is that, we're talking about immigration, so it feels like we're on good ground. But there's a degree to which, at a certain point, and the way that Trump kicked it off, he sounds like a lunatic, right? Like he reminds people that this is who he is. This is how he talks about things, that he will launder conspiracy theory. And so while the spin may be, yeah, we're talking about immigration, that's great, the frame, the piece of that conversation that you were having reminds people of the negative and the reason that they are willing to ditch you. So I don't think it's as positive as they think it is.
Sean?
I mean, look, there's a lot of times when he injects something into the dialogue, into the narrative, and then we start talking about it. And to your point, it starts off as one thing, and the next thing you know, we're having a broader discussion. Vivek Ramaswamy's having a big town hall there tonight, and that's why I think, the bottom line is we are having a more robust discussion about immigration than we were. So sometimes you back into these things in a very odd way.
All right. Warn our affiliates, we are going to go just a little bit over because I want to get Walter Whitehurst in because, as everyone knows, I'm a sucker for alliteration. Walter, tell those who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
I'm in North Carolina. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. But North Carolina, I'm a Trump supporter. I voted for Trump in 16, 20, and plan on voting for him again. My comment was, I do not understand why people will vote for Harris when they don't know what their policies are. It's like I'm a realtor. It's like buying a house without doing a home inspection. So I'm just curious how people can vote for Harris without knowing what her policies are.
Right. Walter, I'm gonna answer that, and then if my colleagues want to get in, we will. But otherwise, we're gonna move on. But guys, you're welcome to answer, obviously. So, Walter, I spend a lot of my day getting emails from people who support Trump, who say, "I don't understand how anybody could vote for Harris, given we don't know what she stands for, given that she's changed her views, given that she's been part of the administration. I don't understand it." And then I get emails from Harris people saying, "I don't understand how anybody could vote for Trump because he January 6th and election denialism, and he's a horrible person." And the reality is tens of millions of people are doing both those things in the next couple months. And one big part of the reason this platform exists is to try to explain that to you, Walter, so you don't feel confused.
Can I just let me I think that Walter's analogy is extremely apt right now. I mean, I watched a group of folks down the road from me this summer bid on a house, and the winning bid was someone who bid cash, no inspection, waived every contingency. And you would say to yourself, how are you going to spend the amount of money that they did doing, like waiving all of these things? This is your analogy is spot on. But they are so desperate to get something because the inventory was limited, right? In this case, the hatred of Trump is so great that they're like, we'll take anybody but him. And I don't really care what the answer is. I mean, that's the answer to your question. They're willing to take anything. The same way that in a real estate transaction, they're saying, I get it. We just want this house so bad. We'll deal with the consequences if they come out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's necessarily always negative partisanship, but to Sean's point, there is a highly charged negative partisanship, and that is part of the decision making. But also, like, if you go down the list of issues, it's pretty clear where the contrasts are between the parties on healthcare, on abortion, on the economy, on taxation, on regulation. I mean, that is sort of what's frustrating about the policy conversation. It's like you can keep going further and further down a rabbit hole, get more detailed, dig in more on housing policy, more on small business. But there is a general sense in the public of the distinction between the two platforms. Now, can people make the argument that we want to hear more, we need to hear more? People are always going to make that argument, regardless of the cycle. But I think the general contrast between two parties is there, and people have decamped to those two parties. Now we're fighting over a very small middle.
Well, in a real estate transaction, the contract is a buyer beware contract. So, if you don't do home inspection, if you don't check things out, you're going to suffer the consequences. And I'm afraid we are going to be suffering the consequences if too many people are just looking at what I call the pretty house versus the pretty house that hasn't been inspected. They're attracted by the pretty, whereas they are turning down a house that's maybe a little bit old, but has good bones and has done a home inspection. They found out the house is a solid house.
Walter, where do you live
in this analogy? That second house is Kamala Harris, right?
Where I live?
I'm just kidding.
I live in Jacksonville, North Carolina, home of Camp Lejeune, Marine Corps, where every other person in this city is either a Marine or a former Marine.
And who do you make the favorite in the governor's race?
Right now, I think Stein it looks to be the favorite. Mark Robertson, of course, is a flawed candidate, but I would love to see him. I I just want a Republican here. We've had Democrats too much in this. So,
and how would you appraise Vice President Harris's chances of winning North Carolina? Do you have even money, favorite, underdog, no chance? How would you appraise that?
I think Trump will win, but it'll be close. But most of the people there, I'm a realtor. Most of the people that are moving from up north they're leaving northern states because of high taxes and a lot of times Democratic governments that have not kept the area safe and everything. They're moving down here to a safer neighborhoods and lower taxes.
So you think the influx is good for Trump?
Yeah, I think for the most part it is, based on what I've been hearing. I mean, I sold quite a few houses during COVID years, and even though we had restrictions on wearing masks and everything because of the Democratic governor, but most of the time I never took a COVID shot. I never got COVID, and I was meeting with people every day.
You're a lucky man, Walter. I want you to pick my lottery numbers. All right, Walter. Thank you for joining us. How'd you find Two-Way?
Okay, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Walter, how'd you find Two-Way?
Two-Way, the YouTube algorithm.
All right. That's our most valuable player here. Walter, thank you. Come back often. All right, guys, any closing thoughts?
I would just say the thing that we talked about yesterday was so interesting about what would make news today. The Fed cut rates at 0.5, which I thought, was huge. The Teamsters failed to endorse, and yet, I think what's so fascinating about this cycle is that what would normally cause or drive news in any given day maybe has a 10-minute lifespan. I mean, each of those stories in themselves would have been stories today, and yet not driving.
To me, even though we're post Labor Day, the media is still acting like it's May.
Yeah.
Tim, closing thoughts on that or anything else? Taylor Swift.
I just still think we have this low hum heading towards a potential government shutdown, which, Mark, I know you think Congress doesn't matter, but if there is a Trump truth saying, hey, unless the SAVE Act is in there, shut the government down, that's a liability.
Tim, are you done talking about the government shutdown?
I could go on for another 30 minutes.
Did you work on the Hill, Tim?
I did, yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor. All right. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for those with questions. People who worked on the Hill think the Hill matters in the presidential year. It almost never does. I'll be back at 5 Eastern, not 4 Eastern, 5 Eastern, with a special edition of Two-Way. We're going to talk about what's going on with Biden-Harris, but part of the program will be devoted to talking about something that we're going to be deep into, which is trying to do everything Two-Way can to make sure that the casting and counting of ballots is done in a way that reinforces confidence in the system rather than undermining it. Former Congressman Dick Gephardt is one of the people in both parties who are part of various efforts to try to make sure that people feel that ballots are counted and cast correctly. So we'll talk to him. We'll also I talked to some election officials from battleground states about how they're dealing with it. And as I said, this is a topic we plan to stay with all the way through and probably beyond Election Day. Grateful to you for watching. We'll see you here at 5 p.m. And then tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, the week's final episode. We'll do winners and losers, who won the week, Friday favorites, all the signature segments we always do here on this program on Fridays. Guys, have a great day. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll see you tomorrow, and I'll see you at this afternoon.